Hello again, this is SQL Dan coming at you with another edition of answering questions from the Snowflake SQL forums. And the question that I'd like to look at this time comes from Srira MG. And the question has to do with a cursor that's selecting two columns. And according to the note that was included here, was that as long as there's one column, it works just fine. But as soon as you get to a second column, not so much. And so let me show you briefly the setup here, and then we'll take a look and I'll show you what the actual problem is. All right, so we have a stored procedure right here. Okay, and this person is selecting two columns from a table, okay, and then opening them in a cursor. And then there's an if statement that says, if the value from column 1 from the cursor equals T1, then we want to insert the record into a table, and we want to insert the value from column 2 into that table. Pretty simple, but the problem is that the error that's being delivered is invalid identifier rvar.column2. So the user is saying that column 1 works, but column 2 does not work. So let's examine that really quickly here. So I'm going to say Control C, and we're going to bring that right over into here. Okay, and so this is the procedure that was delivered, and we'll just run it straight up to see the error that the user is talking about here. Oh, table X does not exist. Of course not, because I needed to create that. So they didn't provide table X for us, but I did create some sample data so that we could do that. And so let's do that really quick. Okay, and I believe I also need to create table Y where the records are going to be inserted. Yep, so that one I didn't drop. I only dropped table X. Okay, so table X and table Y now both exist. So let's attempt to run this procedure again. And when we do, we should see the error that was reported. It says invalid identifier rvar column 2 line 1. And so again, what the user said was, well, column 1 is just fine because column 1 appears further up in the code right here. Okay, but down here, column 2 is not just fine. And what I'd like to do, like I said, is I'd like to challenge that a little bit. So instead of saying, instead of inserting column 2 right here, I'd like to put another if statement. So let's look at the sample data here. And so let's see, when T1 equals when it's T1, then it's 20 or 99. All right, so let's add an additional if statement right here. Like so. And we're going to reference column 2, and we're going to say when column 2 equals 99, of course, need 2 9s, not 2 8s. Okay, so we have that in here. And now in this insert statement, instead of inserting column 2, what I'm going to insert instead is I am going to insert 66 and the current date, okay? So whenever we find a record that has T1 and that column 2 has 99, then we're going to insert that record, and I need another indif here, and then that should do it. So it should now loop through all the records, and we should get one insert of 66 in this. So let's run that. Voila, it was executed successfully. And let's just take a look at table Y. I hope I didn't leave stuff in there from before. Let's see. Of course I did. But there's my entry right there. There's the 66 that was just inserted. just inserted on this run right here. And just to eliminate confusion, let's truncate this table so that we don't have to have it get in our way. Okay, there we go. Table truncated. Query it now, it's empty. Good, and we can even run the procedure again, and now we should see the one record. Okay, it ran successfully. Take a look at table Y. Okay, so this seems to call into question the original premise of the question, which was one column works and the other one doesn't work. And so actually, I think by watching me, you may have already seen what the issue is. And the problem is that this is a SQL statement right here. So it's different than the script because this gets passed to the SQL engine right here. And so this column 2, this rvar column 2, was out of scope as far as this insert statement goes. And so when this was passed to the database engine says, well, I don't know what rvar.column2 is. In other words, it passed it the way it was written. It didn't replace the variable and pass the number. It passed the whole thing the way it is, which is why the error that came back was invalid identifier. That's exactly what you get when you type in any SQL statement, a column name that doesn't exist in a table, right? So it has no idea what to do. So really, the solution to this problem is not the fact that it wasn't the fact that there were two columns. What we instead need to do is to get a bind variable into this statement. This one where I have the hard-coded 66 right here. So if I come down a little further, I've actually solved this already here. Okay, so beginning right here with this execute immediate, here's my declarations, and I had to declare a new variable, and this is going to become my bind variable. So since I'm not very creative at naming, I just named it Dan, and I declared it as a varchar. Okay, and then we have the same cursor as before. We have the same if statement as before, but as soon as that if statement turns out to be true, now we're going to write the value from column 2 to my new variable. Okay, so this is a new piece of the code right here. Then in the SQL statement, notice that I'm passing Dan, but it has a colon on the front of it. So that's what's known as a bind variable. And what it means is that this variable will be resolved at the time the SQL statement is executed. So whatever value is put into Dan right here, okay, will be resolved at the time of this insert statement, and then all the rest of it will happen just like it was before. Now let's go take one more peek at the data here because I believe, yep. So we have two of them that should insert. We have a T1 with a 20 and a T1 with a 99. Now this T2 should not result in an insert because the if statement right here is only looking for a T1. All right, and so that's what I expect to see after I run this procedure. And just to make sure I know we've already seen it, but make sure I'm not pulling any fast tricks on you here. The only thing that's in there right now is that 66. Okay, so we can now run this version of the procedure with the new Dan bind variable. There it is. There's the insert statement, and there's the end of it. And we run this. Boom, the anonymous block is complete. So let's query from table Y again. And there we go. The problem is solved. So sometimes when we have problems like this, our brain leaps to a conclusion and we make assumptions that aren't necessarily true. So one thing that I would always recommend is when you have a theory like that, like, well, one variable works and the other one doesn't, the first thing that I would do is switch them around, right? And, see what that does. Or then try to use the other variables in a different context, which is what I demonstrated up above, and just question your assumption before you build on that assumption, because once you free yourself from the assumption, you might have a good chance of coming to the right conclusion. And this isn't meant to be castigating in any way. It's just one of those things about solving problems when you're doing any sort of programming, is you always have to try to think about, well, what are all the possibilities, but then test them always to see if what your hypothesis is true. Anyway, that's it for tonight. I'll get off my soapbox. I hope that this has made sense to you. I hope it was a good explanation. I hope you enjoyed the video. I appreciate you watching it. If you did like the video, I hope that you'll click the thumbs up and give it a like. And if you really like it, maybe you'll subscribe, because I have a growing library of Snowflake content coming out. In fact, I have just later this week 2 or 3 more videos coming out. And I'd really like to have you as one of my subscribers. So thanks for joining. Have a fantastic evening, and I will talk to you later.